Welcome to Movie Rehash. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi fantasy movie released in 2014, named The Invisible Boy. Spoiler alert. Watch out and take care. In the movie's opening, we meet Michel Silenzi, a boy cycling to school, carrying a €50 note. He intends to buy a costume for an upcoming party. Once at school, he finds himself seated behind his crush, Stella. However, their class is interrupted by Giovanna, a police officer who also happens to be Michel's mother. Giovanna's visit is prompted by a student's disappearance, urging the class to inform the police if they have any information. After her departure, Michel experiences a nosebleed and rushes to the bathroom. Unfortunately, his longtime bullies intercept him, coercing him to surrender his money. Feeling disheartened after the bullying incident, Michel heads back home. With only a few pennies remaining, he decides to purchase a costume despite the setback. He ventures into a worn-out store, where he requests a superhero outfit from the shopkeeper. Reluctantly, the shopkeeper hands him a tight-fitting suit and a lackluster cape, claiming it to be the attire of a Chinese superhero. Although Michel isn't particularly enthusiastic about the costume, he purchases it nonetheless. Later, when Giovanna returns home from work, she finds Michel dressed in his costume, refusing to attend the party due to feeling foolish. However, Giovanna reassures him that he looks great and encourages him to go ahead and enjoy the party. Michel is having a good time and talking to his crush, Stella. However, his bullies show a video of Stella walking on the street and say that Michel has been secretly following her. This makes Michel feel ashamed, so he quickly goes to the bathroom and locks the door. His classmates outside the door start knocking and asking him to come out. Michel is upset and wishes he could disappear, just as the lights suddenly go out. Next, we see Michel jumping out of the bathroom window and heading back home. The next morning, he wakes up to the sound of his dog barking at him. Michel doesn't pay much attention to the dog and goes to the bathroom to brush his teeth. However, when he looks into the mirror, he is shocked to see only his robe and the brush. His body is invisible in the mirror. Surprised and concerned, Michel quickly takes off his robe. Just then, his mother enters the bathroom but completely ignores him, proving that only Michel can see himself. When his mother starts looking around, Michel hastily writes a note on a piece of paper, saying that he has gone to school early, and places it on the bed. His mother, Giovanna, reads the note and dismisses the matter. After leaving the room, Giovanna calls Michel on his phone. Michel, who is still invisible, picks up the phone and assures her that he is fine. Feeling confused about what to do next, he decides to dress in long-sleeved clothes. After covering his entire body, Michel goes to school and discreetly observes Stella from a distance. He also notices his bully and decides it's time to teach him a lesson for causing him so much trouble. Michel removes his clothes and walks into the school without clothes and invisible. While in class, he seizes the bully's paintball gun and uses it on the teacher, leading to the bully's suspension. The following day, Michel attends his class, where a psychologist named Vasily is delivering a lecture on the mental health of teenagers. Recently, 2 of Michel's classmates have run away from home, prompting him to believe that gaining insight into the thought process of teenagers is important. As Michel listens to the lecture, his hands start to glow and then disappear. Hurriedly, he leaves the class before anyone can notice. At home, he encounters his sister Candela and asks her to stay out of his room. Michel undresses and when he turns around, Candela screams in fear as she sees her invisible brother. He assures her that his costume has given him superpowers. Meanwhile, psychiatrist Vasily and Giovanna work together at the police station to investigate the missing children. Giovanna expresses her belief that the missing children might have been kidnapped, while Vasily counters that their actions could simply be a result of normal teenage rebellion. After finishing work at the police station, Giovanna returns home to find Michel still invisible. She engages in a phone conversation with an unknown person, during which she discloses the fact that Michel is adopted. Michel, feeling surprised and hurt, leaves the house and goes to a swing nearby. As he swings, Stella arrives and mistakes Michel for a ghost. However, she isn't scared and asks him to be her friend instead. To communicate with her, Michel draws a smiling face in the sand. They agree to meet again. As Stella leaves, Michel notices a man nearby who is staring at him, even though Michel is invisible. The man walks away using a stick, revealing that he is blind. Later at night, Michel visits Stella's home, and she is thrilled to have made an invisible friend. They share a kiss, but suddenly Michel's powers start to fade. He quickly runs away before Stella can see his face. Meanwhile, Stella is alone in her gymnastics class when she is unexpectedly struck by a needle, causing her to lose consciousness. In another place, Michel decides to reveal his secret of being the invisible boy to Stella. He makes his way to her gymnastics class with his dog. When he arrives at the building, he sees a masked man carrying Stella. Michel bravely attacks the man, and his dog bites the man's hand. However, the man still manages to escape with Stella. Later, the police arrive at the scene and realize that the missing children were actually kidnapped and not running away. Stella regains consciousness in a strange facility where her head is connected to various wires. A psychiatrist named Vasily is present and interrogating her. Shockingly, it becomes clear that Vasily is the one responsible for kidnapping the children. They conduct some tests on Stella and then confine her to a cell. In the cell, Stella discovers that 2 of her friends who had disappeared before her are also there. The next day, Michel finds himself alone at a nearby beach when suddenly, the blind man he encountered before appears in front of him. Surprisingly, the man answers all of Michel's questions before he even asks them. It's as if he can read minds. When Michel asks the man about his identity, he reveals that his name is Andrige and he is actually Michel's father. However, Michel finds it hard to believe and accuses Andrige of lying. In response, Andrige begins to share his story. He explains that he used to be an ordinary man living in a small town in Russia. Everything changed when a terrible nuclear explosion devastated the town. Many people lost their lives, and those who survived underwent permanent changes due to the radiation. Their DNA mutated, giving them unique superhuman abilities such as flying, telepathy, and invisibility, among others. These people became known as the Specials and were taken to a military camp called the Division, where they were used as weapons. The Division exploited the Specials, pushing them beyond their limits. The more they used their powers, the weaker they became. Additionally, a side effect of the radiation was that everyone became infertile, except for Andrige and Michel's mother. This meant that it was impossible to breed new Specials. When Michel was born, he was taken away from his parents, who were determined to escape with him. They managed to flee, but the Division relentlessly pursued them, seeking to reclaim the child. Michel's father possessed the ability to read minds, while his mother had the power to become invisible. Despite their efforts, Michel's mother was tragically killed by the Division during their escape. Aware that Michel wasn't safe with him, Andrige used his mind-reading ability to place the child in front of Giovanna's door, after confirming through her thoughts that she was a good person. Now, the Division has discovered that the special child lives in the town. As a result, they are kidnapping children and subjecting them to tests to determine if they also possess special abilities. After hearing his true origin, Michel is in shock. He has a hard time believing it, but Andrige informs him that they don't have much time to talk because a nearby fisherman finds Andrige suspicious and has called the police. Andrige gives Michel an invisible suit that allows his body to turn invisible as well. He then erases the fisherman's memory and leaves before the police arrive, including Basili. Giovanna reveals to Basili that Michel is adopted, leading Basili to suspect that Michel might be the special child. Basili offers to take Michel home, but when they arrive, Michel notices that Basili has an injury on his hand in the exact spot where Stella's kidnapper was bitten by Michel's dog. Michel becomes suspicious and tries to run away, but Basili has locked all the doors and plans to abduct him. Michel manages to escape by turning invisible and hiding in a room. Basili follows him, and when they are on the streets, Michel sees his bully Ivan on a bike. He asks Ivan to quickly drive away, and a nervous Ivan agrees. In a safe area, Michel reveals himself to Ivan and shares information about their classmates' abductions. Meanwhile, Stella and her friends discover a ventilation opening on the ceiling. They help each other climb up, and Stella successfully steps outside. While evading guards, she climbs a tower and reaches a searching light. Believing that her invisible friend is searching for her, she creates a smiling face on the light and flashes it towards the sky. Michel sees the smiling face and realizes that Stella is trying to communicate with them. He and Ivan follow the light, but when they arrive, guards capture Stella. Using his paintball gun, Ivan causes an electric malfunction, creating a diversion as invisible Michel sneaks inside. He encounters Basili and his men monitoring Giovanna and Andrige, who have joined forces to find Michel. Michel continues further and knocks out a guard. With his gun, he coerces another guard to open the cell where Stella and the others are trapped. After rescuing them and trapping the guards inside, Michel reveals himself to his surprised friends. The boys plan to escape, but Stella insists they save an old man she saw locked in another room. However, Stella betrays Michel by leading the old man and pointing a gun at him. Stella suddenly falls unconscious, and the old man, who possesses mind control powers, begins to speak. It turns out he has been manipulating Basili and Stella to bring Michel to him. The old man summons a submarine and takes Michel and Stella into the sea. Meanwhile, Andrige and Giovanna arrive and meet Ivan. The building is set to explode in a few seconds. They swiftly rescue the abducted children, including Basili, from inside the building. Andrige reads Basili's mind and discovers someone was controlling him. They escape just in time as the building explodes into pieces. Inside the submarine, Michel discovers his telekinesis power and begins to wreak havoc. Using his abilities, he defeats the men and saves himself and Stella. They finally reach the shore, where a crowd of people awaits them. Michel turns invisible in front of everyone, proudly displaying his powers. Andrige informs Michel that they must erase everyone's memories because the Division will come searching for them again. Michel agrees and shares a final kiss with Stella. Andrige assures Michel that he will return and then proceeds to erase everyone's memories. Everyone resumes their normal lives. The scene cuts to somewhere in Russia. Michel's mother, who was previously believed to be deceased, was actually wounded during the confrontation. She managed to defeat the Division and has since taken control of it. In fact, she was the one who orchestrated the mission to retrieve Michel and bring him back to her. She now harbors resentment towards normal people who view them as outcasts and treats them as enemies. In a final scene, a guard informs Michel's mother that although they lost Michel, they have located his twin sister, Natasha. A flashback reveals that Andrige had escaped with both children on that fateful day. The movie concludes with the guard disclosing that Natasha is currently in Morocco, teasing the possibility of a sequel. In this way, movie ends here.